All right, so this is going to be another one of my sort of replay reviews. This is from Game 4 of the 5th Secret Hitler tournament, and this was quite an interesting game. There's a recording up of the live version of the game that I'll link down in the description that Rivstar posted, and needless to say, it was about an hour long, so I'm kind of hoping to get through this a little faster than that. Seat 1, we have PWG. He was playing for Maxi's team, that's Team 4 in Seat 1. Maxi's team. I love the team names for this tournament. The Maxicans. That's a really clever name. Um, so yeah, that's been great. New player 5. He's playing for Pingu's team, the Pingus Flamingus. It reminds me of what's the Monty Python and the is it the Holy Grail? No, not the Holy Grail. The Life of Brian. That's what that reminds me of. That's Team 5 in Seat 2. Interesting that Pingu got Team 5. I think he was Team 6. He's always been like Team 5 or 6, I feel like. Joan was playing for Team 1. Himmy's Little Hailers. This is Dice's team. So Team 1 in Seat 3. NYC Elsa was playing for Team 3, the Silent Majority. That's Nixon's team. Congratulations to Nixon for making captain, by the way. That's quite an accomplishment, at least in my opinion, because he's really moved up in the community. So Anna, now we get to the fascist. Anna was playing for the Drunk Zoo. That's Carl's team. So Team 7 in Seat 5. Paz playing for... I don't see Paz on here. Either Team 2 or Team 6. Not sure. JATP here is playing for Team 2. That's Manu's team. 404, team not found. So Paz must have been playing for Team 6. Maybe as a... I don't see their name. Oh, Paz is the vice captain. That's why I don't see them. Of Team 6. That's Medusa's team, the naughty list. So Team 6 in Seat 6. So a really interesting game. We'll go through it here and sort of talk about it. Obviously, it was an hour-long game. There's way too much chat to discuss. So the first two govs go by. Nothing too dramatic. Just two blues. 3-7, yeah, each other. Not a big deal. 5-1 decides the conflict, which is a bit of an interesting one. I'm not. I definitely would not conflict in 1-5 as 5. Or 1, seeing that, like, I don't want 3-7 to play. I don't really want to put my Hitler in a difficult position to where he thinks he needs to conflict on him or something. So given these lines, I think conflicting is a dubious play. It does allow for 6 to take him. You got the blue. I'm not going to say I hate that play. The thing about it is, from my point of view, you just have to be able... You have to look at the player you're going to conflict and see if you can out-chat them and beat them in the 50-50. And in this game, at least, and you'll see this in the live version, that was definitely not the case, I'm sorry, but 1 definitely out-chatted 5 this game. So 6 is going to take Imv, and Imv to Liberal. So that was an interesting play, too. You don't really see vanilla fascist inving liberals as liberal very often. It doesn't usually work. It's a great play as Hitler. Otherwise, kind of a dubious play, but I am all for it. Changing things up a little bit. So 3-7 gets, or 7-3 gets RBB. And so after the first 2 blues, we have 1 conflict. That's the 3rd blue, and then this is the 5th blue. So it was actually a 6 blue deck for liberals. That's pretty lucky for them. Pretty lucky for 2 as well. He looks a lot more liberal now on a 5 blue deck. Technically a 6 blue deck, since 6 ditched. So I think they 2-5-6 try to yacht 2. This is really good for fascists that this line appears up, because when votes like this turn up, it kind of has an effect of imprinting these sort of lines on people's minds. 5-6 early on emerged as a very possible line. And what that does is it it separates 7 a little bit from the fascists, so that's pretty good, I guess. I mean, obviously you can't anticipate exactly how people are going to vote, but 2 tried to take his government. I don't blame him. He would have gotten a blue. Would he have got conflicted? Maybe. I definitely think Paz is the type of player that might go for that sort of play, outing on invest. So, in case you haven't seen some of my other videos on this, if so because 6 invs to liberal, if 2 then passes a blue to 6 and 6 plays the red, and then 2 claims RRB, 6 will be outed fascist because whether 2 is fascist or not, 6 said earlier that 2 is liberal, right? So 6 cannot be liberal under any circumstances. He's either fascist with 2 being liberal, or he's fascist with 2 being fascist. But either way, he's outed fascist at that point. And it would be a very interesting play, especially in a tournament game, to have 2 fascist in 2-6 and then have an outed fascist in seat 6. Because at that point, what you're basically hoping for is that the other fascist, who in this case is in conflict, so this is not even going to happen, the other fascist would have to make up for the fact that 2 of you as fascists are in conflict now, and of course that's not going to happen, so the libs would just kind of win the game from that point on. This is not a situation where you'd want to do that. Anyway, it just, there are some things that happen that are sometimes kind of interesting. Elsa, unfortunately, gets red, red, red in SCs too. There was a lot of discussion about the SC, so let's not skip over this. It's very unfortunate for Elsa that she gets red, red, red after 3-4 play the 4th blue. So now, the SC is always 2 or 3, right? 2 is imp lib on a 5 blue deck, so they look fine, and 3 just played the 4th blue with NYC Elsa. And I really think that with 2 blues remaining in the deck, it's totally fine to advocate for a top deck twice to 3 if you're in seat 4. In fact, I think that's what you should do. Rather, what happens in the game, 7 rather quickly resigns to 2, and then 4 does as well, which is a bit strange. You wouldn't expect those 2 players to be the ones resigning. You would obviously expect 6. Like once 4 and 7 resign to 2, 6 already is yawing 2 as well, and 2 is of course going to yaw himself. So that gives 2 the SC just by default. But the problem is, especially if you're a liberal in seat 4 or 7, is if 2 is a fascist with 5 and 6, or 1 and 6, you're just giving the game away to the fascist. And I really don't think that you can ignore 3. I will say that during the SC and leading up into the SC, 3's chat was totally good. Like, there was nothing dubious in 3's chat. They just played the 4th blue. Like, I don't know why you wouldn't at least take top decks, up to 3. So, I don't know. It is what it is. And then 3 can pick 2 if the top decks don't turn out the way you want to as seat 4. And then 3-2 will likely find a blue. Yeah, hopefully find a blue. And 2 is not a very likely Hitler candidate, at least in my opinion. So, all the more reason to go ahead and do it that way. So anyway, they SE2, but interestingly, okay, so 2 picks 6. 3 is available as a pick. I'm going to talk a lot about this because, like, even before the SC was given, I thought 3 was liberal. I hadn't yet decided who I thought was fascist in 1-5 while I was watching the video live, but that became apparent later on, that it was just 5-6x. And to be honest, the votes kind of led me towards that decision. But there's a number of reasons why 2 shouldn't pick 6, and the chief among them is that it's such a common play for 6 as Hitler to inv liberal as liberal, so that this exact situation happens. Their inv liberal gets SC'd, and then picks them, QQing them in Hitler's zone. And this used to be such a prevalent thing, actually, that the meta was actually in a place where you almost never saw this happen in Hitler zones. You never saw people picking the person who inved them lib. Then it became more common that fascists were just conflicting rather than inving libs as lib because they just weren't gaining anything from it. So the meta kind of shifts back and forth. In this situation, it's fine because you're in the situation where 6 is CNH. But after seeing 2 pick 6, 4 and 7 both get cold feet about 2, and they decide they want to 9. 1 also 9s 2. I don't think 1 was ever yawing 2. I'm not sure. But 3, I think they wanted 3 to take his gov. But interestingly, 3 is actually the 4th vote for this government, which is really interesting. So not the best plays from all the players, in my opinion. I don't think it's really great to say you're going to SE someone if you're in seat 4 or 7. SE them and then 9. That's almost never a great play. I don't really care what 1 and 5 are doing, to be honest. It is a little weird again. 2, 5, 6 are all yawing each other. At that point, I'd be really scared, especially in seat 3, that I'd just yawed a fascist when I had the chance to 9 and take my own government. By 1 vote, by the way. Like, I was the deciding vote. I'd feel horrible if it was 2, 5, 6 and I was in seat 3. Luckily, that wasn't the case, and also, luckily, 6 was not Hitler. So that's good. Unfortunately, okay, so 2 does find the blue, which is really good. Because it's the 4th blue, 6 is forced to be outed and is later shot. So now you know a fascist is dead. That's really good. At that point, I think that 2 is very likely to be liberal. Paz kind of gave a little, hey, I gave you gun. Guy replied to me on YouTube. Nice. Hey, I gave you the gun. That was a really funny moment in the video. Go look for it. But it's never really a thing. So in my opinion, at this point, though, 2 is inf lib. They shot 6. I really think that a fascist, more often than not, is going to take the 50% odds and just take the top deck, right? Unless 2 is Hitler and they think they're going to get hailed. But they were just president, so they can't get hailed yet. The best they can hope for is to top deck a red. That's 33%. There's a blue top deck, by the way, which would end the game right there. That's what they're betting on. And then they get hailed by 3 or something. So that's a possible play I could see, where 2 as fascist shoots 6. Would I take my 50% odds? Maybe. It's not as good as taking 75% odds, obviously. But, I think it's reasonable to call 2 liberal after that shot, and I did think that 2 was liberal after that shot. So there was also discussion here, after 7 picks 3, about whether or not 7 should be yawed, and 1 and 4 were campaigning heavily to 9-7 to then... the really bad thing that I saw being advocated for was they wanted 2-7 to play, and that's horrible. Like, obviously 7 is Hitler, but basically they were trying to talk 2 out of yawing 7 because they were like, well, if you trust 7 with a gun, you should trust him as chancellor, which is totally backwards logic. For one thing, I think you trust 3 to not be Hitler more than you trust 7 to not be Hitler. And because a fascist is dead in seat 6, there's no need for a 3v3 test of any kind. You're just getting a free shot. If 7 happens to be fascist, they'll just shoot a liberal, and then you just move on. If 7 happens to be liberal, then you get another gun, and you can take a free shot in 1-5. And in my opinion, the shot is always 5. I don't think I would ever shoot in 3-4. Because at the end of the day, if you're a liberal in seat 7, it's a 50-50 either way. I don't think it's ever 2. Like, the shot would never be 2 after 2 shoots 6. So you're avoiding 2 as Hitler, which kind of sucks. The reason I say that 5 is a good shot, and while I was watching the video, I thought I would have shot 5, is, well, obviously 7 wouldn't shoot 5 because they're Hitler, but if I was liberal in seat 7, I would have shot 5, and the reasoning for that was just because I had a good read that 1 was liberal and 5 was fascist. Even with this play, like, PWG kind of, like, they were, like, hard pushing 2 to take their own government, right? They were like, I really trust you that you're liberal, and that's not really, like, a fascist play, ever. Like, you've seen 2 shoot 6. You're not going to tell 2 if they're Hitler to take their government. It's not a fascist play, at least from my point of view, and especially from 2's point of view. It shouldn't be seen as a fascist play either, and that will come into focus later, or relatively soon. So, obviously 7 gets the blue and drops it. Now, this is very interesting because now 7-4 is a conflict on cards. Because basically 7 is claiming that 4 dropped a blue. 3 is confirmed liberal because they got a blue. They wouldn't have ever dropped... I guess they could have dropped an RBB. So maybe it's not a conflict on cards. Let me think about that for a second. It's the second deck. There's 4 governments in the second deck. The first government is 3. Actually, yeah, 7-4 is not a conflict because 2 could have dropped and shot 6. 3 could have dropped it in 3-4, which would have been very strange if that was the case. Yeah, and of course 7 could have dropped. Any one of these players could have dropped, although the least likely, obviously, is 3 to have dropped, at least from my point of view. So yeah, they shoot 4. I think they shot 4 because they thought that 7-4 was practically a conflict. And to be honest, that's not a terrible read. Like, I thought 3 was liberal, and I also thought 2 was liberal. And when you make that assertion, then you think, okay, 1 of 4, 7 has a fascist, so have 7 shoot 4. But you have to have a contingency plan, right? And the contingency plan that they had was, we're going to go 2-7, right? You can't pick 3 because they're a chancellor. You can pick 7 because they're president, and it's now 5-player, but you can't pick 3 because they were the previous chancellor. But you can 9 to 3-2. And the deck state is red, 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 blue, so that would have won them the game as liberal. That's a, like, 81%, no, it's a 79% win rate for liberals to 9 to 3-2, if they're both liberal. You're looking for one blue out of the 2 blues in 8. Unfortunately, they yaw this and hail, and that is the game. So, I hope I've given a fairly decent review of this game. It's still quite long. There was a lot to talk about. I apologize for that. But, yeah. I don't want to blame any one liberal in particular, because there were a bunch of parts of this video where each liberal made a play that was wrong or said something that was bad. Of the 4 liberals, I would say 3 probably played the best. I never really thought that 3 jeopardized their liberality or felt like they were fascist based on something they were saying. Like, that never came up for me, at least when I was watching the video. I could have missed something, of course. I would say that 5 played pretty poorly, and so did 6. They never really tried to even sound liberal. Obviously, Paz was kind of backed into a corner. They had to out anyway, but and Hitler did okay. I would say Hitler did fine. He let the liberals lead him, and he let the liberals walk over each other so that he could be hailed in veto zone, which is really good. That's really good for fascists. So, with that, I will end the recording, and I really have to apologize to all the people who were really looking forward to having me commentate all these games. But after watching this game in full on Rivstar's channel at 2x speed, even. Like, that was an hour-long game. Like, no, there's just no way. I don't have the time. I barely have the time for this, in fact. I really, yeah, so I apologize for that. But it was a lot of fun to review this game, so I'll see you later.